A lapped zipper is probably one of the very first zippers you learn how to sew. It is a very basic application, and a lot of other zippers are built on the same structure. Well, a lapped zipper is the very first thing that I learned how to sew, but when I learned it years and years ago, I did not know the single most important technique to achieving a perfectly aligned zipper every time. It was not until years later that I discovered this trick, and it has truly changed my life. And today I'll share it with you. A lapped zipper is one of the most common zipper applications used in dressmaking. A lapped zipper features top stitching visible on the face of the garment applied to the left of the zipper teeth. This stitch placement naturally allows for comfortable right-hand zipping and unzipping. When sewing any conventional zipper, it is important to consider the placement of the top zipper stop in relation to the seam stop edge. If, for example, the top portion of the seam will be finished with a facing, leave about ½ inch of distance from the horizontal seam line to the zipper top stop. Align the zipper with the seam edge and mark the location of the bottom stop either with tailor's chalk or a pin. Align and pin the seam layer together as you would with any regular seam, face sides touching and pins inserted horizontally as shown. Starting from the bottom, stitch the seam at the designated seam allowance, which is 1 inch in this case. Stop at the bottom tailor's chalk mark and backstitch this location to secure. Switch your machine setting to a basting stitch or the longest stitch length available on your sewing machine and continue stitching with a basting stitch until you arrive at the top of the seam. Using a seam ripper, clip every 5 to 6 basting stitches as shown. As you clip, be careful not to pull the seam apart. Turn the seam on its wrong side with seam allowance layers facing up. Place the closed zipper face down so that the coils align with the seam line. Align the right zipper tape to the right seam allowance edge. Insert pins to keep the zipper and seam allowance layers perfectly aligned. To facilitate machine stitching, it helps to move all the garment layers out of the way during this process. If needed, hand baste to keep the zipper tape more secure during the stitching process to follow. Using a zipper presser foot, machine stitch through the seam allowance and zipper tape layers as shown. Next, flip the zipper away from the garment so that its face side is exposed. Insert a few pins to secure this fold. Starting at the bottom and using the zipper presser foot, top stitch along the folded edge formed along the zipper tape. Stitch close to this fold line at about 1/8 of an inch. This should be easy to do with a zipper presser foot. Remove any temporary hand basting once complete. Next, turn the entire seam on its right side and flatten out the closed zipper seam line with your hand. On the left side of the zipper coils, hand baste horizontally starting at the bottom underneath the bottom zipper stop and moving away from the coils. Stop at about ½ an inch distance from the coils and pivoting the hand basting up, stitch along the left side of the zipper coils through the garment, zipper tape, and seam allowance layers underneath. Double check that the basting stitch is located along the pre-woven stitching line marked on the zipper tape. Starting at the bottom and moving horizontally away from the coils, machine top stitch using a regular stitch length. When arriving at the pivot point, leave the needle in, lift the presser foot, and shift the entire direction of the zipper such that it now aligns lengthwise. Drop the presser foot and continue stitching next to the hand basting until you arrive at the garment's top edge. Once the top stitch is complete, remove the hand basting with a seam ripper. Using a hand-sewn needle, move any loose threads to the wrong side of the zipper and tie them in a double knot to secure. To open the zipper, gently pull the seam edges apart. The clipped machine basting stitches will come undone and fully release the seam. Remove any remaining loose threads from the folded seam edges.